Cheers, Rob. And look, I'll start off by saying what I said in July, that it's an honour to be in this room with so many activists, trade unionists, out in our workplaces, shop stewards, taking the fight on. And look, I thank Rob and the NSSN for asking me to come back and speak today. And look, I'll start by saying that the call for a national demo against Starmer's cuts, that we fully back that as a union. I fully back it as a General Secretary, and we will be there. But I'll tell you why we back it. We back it not just because of the 14 years of austerity in the Fire and Rescue Service. You've probably heard these figures come across my lips before. We've lost 12,000 firefighters in the UK Fire and Rescue Service, but it's getting worse. We expected change a year ago and we're not seeing it. So we are facing austerity Mark II. We are facing cuts of over £200 million over the next year. That equates to 2,300 firefighters. So look, at 3 o'clock today, there will be a national alert, raising an emergency alert that we should all be aware of. But I'll tell you what I'm doing today. I'm raising a national emergency, and I'll be doing it with our motion that goes on the floor at TUC tomorrow. Because the risk in the Fire and Rescue Service is not a risk to just me as a firefighter, to my son who's a firefighter, it's to each and every one of you. It's to your families, it's to your members, whether your members work in a school, in a shop, in a factory, they are at risk. They're at risk because of the austerity that we faced, but they're at risk because of Starmer's cuts that are coming down the line. And I'll give you an example of this. When you dial 999, and I'll repeat some of this on the floor tomorrow, when you ring 999, that lifeline that 999 gives you, you expect your call to be answered immediately. Okay? So when you ring 999 and there's a crime, you ask for the police. When there's a medical emergency, you ask for the ambulance service. For everything else, you dial 999 and you ask for the fire service. Whether that's a road traffic collision, a fire, a chemical incident, a terrorist attack, it's firefighters that you want to respond. And my warning, as a firefighter who's worked in the fire service for the last 25 years, that lifeline is being systematically eroded. It's been eroded by the Tories, it's been eroded by the Labour government. So our message, this stark warning that we're delivering, is that we're all at risk, and we're going to stand up and fight against it. I don't believe Labour are going to turn these cuts around. We're going to have to take that fight on ourselves. That's going to have to be the industrial fight of every fire station, every control room in the UK Fire and Rescue Service. But my ask is, and I'll ask this again tomorrow, is that you take this message from me, as the General Secretary that represents all firefighters across the UK, of someone who's been the son of a firefighter. From day one, I've lived behind a fire station. I know what cuts do. I know the impact that has. And I want you to take this message back to your families, to your communities, and to your branches. To have this discussion in every branch, in every workplace, and discuss the impact that Fire and Rescue Service cuts will have on your workplaces. Whether you work in a bakery, a factory or a shop, you want to be able to dial 999, that call to be answered immediately, and firefighters to be able to respond. That's why firefighters join the job. This is a stark warning. It may sound serious, but that is the risk that we face. And look, I've been called angry. I've been called angry by the right-wing press recently. Quite right, I'm angry. That my service that I love has been decimated, and we're not going to take it anymore. So look, there are other threats that we face at the moment, and Mick talked about the Employment Rights Bill. Yes, we may have to go to Employment Rights Bill Mark II, Mark III, but look, we need to keep the firm pressure on Starmer's neck right now. And whatever the reshuffle creates, we need to make sure that we're targeting those that follow. And I hope that you will do that as well. Just a couple of other points on the Employment Rights Bill and working together. Look, we have supported the workers that have taken strike action recently. Mick talked about the whole train driver and their strike action. That we've supported them not just on their picket lines, but financially. We've supported the bin workers in Birmingham financially. We've supported the phlebotomists in the southwest financially. Because my motto, and our union's motto should be, that we will not allow any worker to be starved back to work. Look, I think our union should be proud of what we did during the miners' strike. Food parcels, money. Now that's what solidarity is. It needs to be more than words, it needs to be more than slogans. We need to be there with one another at every picket line and every strike that we take. And on that, look, I think in rooms like this, as Mick said, this is where we can organise. But I do want to give a bit of a shout out to Strike Map. I think, look, they've energised some of this movement recently. They have brought unions together. I do think we've worked in silo too much. We've been taking on our own fights and not working across unions. So, look, a good shout out to them. I think we need to do more of that work across union working. Because, look, we know what's coming down the line. Austerity Mark 2. We need to be on the front line of this call for a national demo. We'll support that. We'll also support the motion tomorrow from the UCU about wages, not weapons. We'll also support the TUC reform. Because, look, we know we need to go further and harder in this fight that we face. And I'll wrap up there, Rob. Thanks very much.
For organising this rally. You know, it's hard to believe it's 12 months since we were last here. And just for all the work that you do throughout the year, you and the team, because things like this don't just happen. Attendance on picket lines just doesn't happen. There's people working really hard behind the scenes on a shoestring to do all that work. So thank you to you, Rob, and the team at National Shop Stewards Network for everything that you do. As a union, the Bakers Food and Allied Workers Union has always stood for the principle that an injury to one is an injury to all. And I've just apologised in another fringe. You're going to hear that a lot this week.